Well, welcome to the first Coach Connect online Zoom session. So I'll figure out, there we go. First, obviously, the acknowledgement of country, the land on which we are located, where our athletes train and compete, is traditional land of the Dharawal people. The Academy acknowledges the traditional owners of country and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters, and culture. And we pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. First, I just want to bring your attention, if you haven't already had a chance to check out the Linktree app or the Coach Network resources, that's a QR code there for it. Well, obviously, we'll send this presentation out afterwards as well as that link. It's a ever continuing and developing resource. It's where we will put copies of the Coach Connect Zoom up online, so you can refer back to either the slideshow or the presentation discussions itself as we go. And it's, as I said, an ever building resource that we have for the Academy. First of all, the staff, for those who don't know, Jerry Knight's our Chief Executive Officer, myself, Stephen Craig, the Sport Operations Manager, and we have Katarina Duramio on call, who's the Sports Program Manager, and Talia Febo, who is our Sport Administration Officer, also on the call. Probably some of the most important people this evening are our Coach Technical Advisory Group. So the reason we have a Coach Technical Advisory Group is to function as a sounding board for Academy staff and coaches on technical and tactical matters within the practice of coaching. So we've come up with four of our main strategic priorities for what we call CTAG throughout the year. So together with Academy staff, CTAG will look at developing and implementing a peer coaching network, of which Coach Connect is the first online session of that. They are also, we're working together for face-to-face connection, improved program planning, both the process and the content in that. So not just what to have in your programs, but making sure, working with Academy staff across the board, state sporting organisations, that we're providing both coaches and athletes the best available programs in the state. Three-dimensional training of coach and support staff. We're very fortunate to have a great relationship with the 3D Institute. So we'll touch on that probably in a later workshop. And then coming out with coach development strategic direction. So where we want our coach development to go within the organisation. So just very quickly introducing who's on CTAG. So Jeff Cooper, who is in Japan at the present time, sends his apologies. Guy Creeber, who's on the call. Reverend Jim Dahu, who sends his apologies. He unfortunately has organised his own organisation Zoom to be on the second Monday of the month, as we have with Coach Connect. We welcome Daniel Morris, he's on the call, or Dan. He's joining CTAG this year. We're very fortunate to have him on board, and Van Nguyen. What I might ask, if we just go Guy first, then Dan and Van, maybe just a couple of minutes on just your experience with the Academy, as well as what you bring to CTAG and your passion, I guess, for coach development.
All right, Steve, thanks. Guy Creeber is my name. So just briefly, I'm a triathlon and athletics coach, adults and juniors. I've been a SWAS triathlon program coach for 5 years, going back probably several years now, and currently West Future Stars program manager. And I'm on the coach advisory panel, as Steve just mentioned. I suppose my passion is, and then you put me on the spot with that, Steve, but probably getting the right guys in the SWAS program and then doing our best to develop them appropriately to move forward in the pathway system. I suppose that's my main ambition with being on the coach advisory panel, and secondarily, I suppose, to make sure that we also work towards developing these young people as good athletes and good human beings as well. So moving forward, I think, Steve, the Coach Connect process is a valuable process you've got in place, and I'm looking forward to being part of that process as well. I think I'm going to present at the next forum next month on program planning and the like, teamwork and building teams and so on. So I'm looking forward to that. So that's my 2 bobs worth.
Fantastic. Thanks, Guy. Over to you, Dan.
Yeah, so as Steve said, I'm Dan. I'm with the BMX program as a program coordinator alongside Cara, who's also on the chat. I've been in SWAS now. I think this will be going my 5th year this coming season. And then prior to that, I did a little bit of unofficial assistant work with Cara and previously Kyle, who was there as well. In the BMX coaching space, I've been doing it for about 8 or 9 years now. Working more with probably individual athletes than teams and squads. SWAS is the only real sort of squad that I've worked with in that space. Aside from that, I've got a degree in human movement and currently doing my physiotherapy degree. And as a part of that, I've been lucky enough to have a few internships with sporting teams like the South Sydney Rabbitohs. So my sort of passion and the reason that I put my hand up for the CTAG was I want to have a look more at creating pathways, not just for athletes, but for coaches as well, from their sort of community sports into an area like SWAS, and then how we can progress them from here onto the next level. And, you know, for a sport like BMX, we don't really have that pathway for coach or athlete at the moment. So it's trying to work out how we can establish methods to get athletes and coaches through the pathway, where we're sort of seeing a few roadblocks at the moment.
Excellent. Thanks, Dan. And yeah, looking forward to having you contribute to these and the CTAG sessions. Van.
Hi, everyone. I've been a part of SWAS for over 10 years, which is a little bit scary to say, but I have been. Been in their space in many different roles. So started off in sports science, physio, and then head coaching, mentoring coaching, and in the later years into CTAG. My passion for this space is a bit of both of what Guy and Dan both spoke about. One for the athletes and being able to help them grow and get to their opportunities and their future, and a lot of the time to see their dreams become a reality. But also a huge passion of mine is in the coaching space, and to hopefully be able to provide opportunities for community coaches to come up. And, you know, I saw a post today that basically said that coaches and volunteers hide, you know, everywhere. They're just everyday people who volunteer. And I think it's incredible to be able to tap into that space and let them bring themselves to the community and what they can give to the up and coming people of our region. So to be able to increase that reach via CTAG and SWAS is exciting to be able to do.
Fantastic. Thanks, Van. Just a brief, I guess, rundown on what the Coach Connect Zooms are all about. Is each topic of the month has a bit of obviously a theme behind it that relates to the academy sport framework or an academy expectation. So there will be an academy expectation behind why we're running a particular topic. 9 times out of 10, we will have a framework resource probably already written. So we'll discuss the framework resource that we have. If not, the intent over the next 9 months is to continue to develop those resources so they will be in place. And then we'll briefly discuss the coach expectation, how it sits within program planning or that framework. Then we'll touch on a catch point, which is effectively where we get a lot of information back or where we are focusing on becoming better. Then there'll be a few discussion points where we'll ask questions around those catch points, identifying how we can improve or what we're actually looking for in that respect. Then we'll try and give a bit of an academy direction on where us as an academy think we should go. That's between the staff and CTAG. Where possible, we'll look at a case study that's happened normally within the organisation, whether it be a particular squad or from a survey result in that respect. Then we'll have a few more discussion points, a bit more information on what other organisations are maybe doing in that space, and then we'll have time for some general business or absolute pure discussion on coach and coach development within the academy. So jumping right back in, I'll Go back to sharing the screen. Here we go. So tonight's topic is on what are we looking for, which is effectively athlete selection and validation. So this is about selection criterias and running your trials. Now, obviously, all of us have been involved at some point in selecting athletes at various levels. Now we're looking into that academy space. Here we are. So just a very quick reminder, everyone would have seen this numerous times. If not, you'll see it a lot in the academy. This is the FTM pathway, and where they from the New South Wales Institute of Sport and Office of Sport, where they see regional academies, local clubs, NSWIS and AIS sittings. So fortunately, we're identified in one of those key areas above the club and association network and starting to head towards that professional level or NSWIS. Tonight's resource, which is available on the Linktree Coach Network resources, was updated about a week ago. Has a lot of the content that we'll talk about this evening on athlete selection and validation. We're keen to partner with athletes, coaches, and parents, and all work together, administration staff, to help our athletes get to our goals. So the catch point we have when it comes to selections and selection criteria is feedback. So touching on this, throughout the selection process, coaching and support staff should compile an appropriate list of individual and general feedback for all trialling athletes that would be suitable to be provided to the academy, both generalized and individually specific. That's fantastic, but how do you do that with a very small team, and what feedback are we actually looking for? So if you look at sport-specific feedback, things like technical offensive skills, whether that's passing, catching, shooting, batting, scoring, kicking, running, you can add a number of things in there. Technical defensive skills, whether it be stance, positioning, how they defend, stealing, rebounding, depending on the sport, obviously. For those who don't know me, I'm from a basketball background, hence why a lot of these will probably read more like basketball than AFL or softball. Tactical, such as how do they read the play, where do they stand out of position, what's their off-ball movement, what's their on-ball movement, their reactions, their pro-actions. Then we look at physiological feedback, so general things like their agility, endurance, stamina, their recovery. That's probably more an athleticism point. But something very important for us at the academy is their character or their academy attributes. So things like their coachability, communication, teamwork, and leadership. These are all key components that we're looking for when we say we're after feedback. What are you looking for within your trial or selection process? Anyone? So if you're running a trial or selection process, what are you looking for when you're, I guess, what specifics are you looking at your athletes to have when you're running a selection trial?
Steve, I might kick it off, Guy here. I suppose I'm looking at, things as you mentioned, like technical, tactical, and physical, as well as a bit of psychological content as well. So people that can handle situations and the like. But also probably something that you haven't quite mentioned there is I'm looking for someone or an athlete who's had a bit of experience in that sport, or has attributes that would tailor themselves to perform in that sport in a reasonable amount of time. So I suppose talent to an extent is an item that I'd be looking for as well.
Sheer talent, athleticism. If you just go back and share that, so we might just go back. a couple of screens. So if we started to talk about sport-specific skills, so are we all looking for the technical skills, offensively, defensively, the tactical skills? I guess how are we running our trials is probably more of a more detailed question in that respect. So, are you running trials that include opportunities to show these technical skills, tactical skills, the physiological skills? Are we doing sports science testing as a part of our trials? Maybe not. Anyone else want to add anything to what they look for if they're running a selection trial?
In our BMX program trials, we've also included a coachability part to our trials. So we'll put them while we're doing our trial drills and that sort of stuff. We'll also be looking at their attitude towards what we're getting them to do. Sometimes we'll have our really talented guys and we'll get them to do something quite basic and see whether they're willing to just do the basic things for what we need to see in that, or whether, our guys that are sort of on that fringe with their technical abilities, whether they're willing to give it a go and take that step up to see whether we can sort of push them to that level as well.
Yeah. So things like, coachability, leadership, willingness to step outside their comfort zone and show something unique and different. No. We'll move on then. So the next question is, how are you validating your selections? Probably more importantly, how do you currently record feedback on your trials? Are you recording feedback on your trials? And if so, what methods are you using to record that feedback? Anyone would care to have a crack at this question?
For us in netball, I'm happy to answer a little bit there. We have a framework where we do an overall scoring of like a 3-2-1, which just ranks, who we think are your definites in, your possibles and probables, and those that aren't quite there yet. But then on top of that, 2 separate columns. One are the things that they're doing well, and the second part is things that they need to turn around and work on. And when I turn around and share a lot of the selections, then talking to the other selectors, actually asking them to be writing more about the things that people need to work on. The 2 reasons: one, for those that are unsuccessful, that we can provide them with some feedback. If there are any themes that come across the big cohort, then we can deliver that information back to them like there and then. And then the other reason is it gives us a really good snapshot as to the successful athletes, as to the key themes or areas that we think they need to be working on, which will then help us start programming leading into that season. So we're already thinking about and understanding where their strengths and where their areas of work are from selection day.
Definitely, yeah. And I guess one of the biggest things we get in the academy is those unsuccessful athletes who ask us for feedback. So again, the academy position on this is we try and get as much feedback as possible. When we go out to unsuccessful athletes, we'll provide generic feedback on the overall trial. So rather than spell out each individual's performance, we'll try and give them something to say, okay, for example, the quality of shooting was way down, so you need to work on, your shooting, your footwork leading into the shot, that kind of scenario, as a general feedback as to why athletes weren't successful. And then we'll invite the unsuccessful athletes to seek out additional or specific feedback. Hence why, as Van said, and I think netball has quite an extensive list of feedback reporting. So does anyone else use any particular forms or methods for recording their feedback during the trial?
I can't find our specific format that we do, but we normally have a sheet with us. So we basically go through the basic techniques and skills and kind of rank them in a way on how we think they complete those certain skills. But then a lot of the time we less focus on skills, we more focus on, as Daniel said before, attitude. Usually we keep in mind the athletes that are obviously returning, because we have a pretty good strike rate with returning athletes. So our attitude questions usually are already based off of what we've seen previously. But then we will always, I know last year we went and we spoke to the club and the board members at the club for the ones that we weren't sure on their attitudes towards the sport. And then our biggest thing is like we have trouble with, at times, honestly, commitment. So we also look at how they've gone and what events they've participated in, less their ranking and more just like whether they're going and participating in events such as like our state rounds, national rounds, state champs and our national champs, just to see whether they're going to turn around and be committed to a full-time program throughout the year as well.
I guess another question, the more we look at or think about it, is do we have enough people on hand to ensure we're getting the feedback we need through the trials process? Like, do we have enough coaching staff? For example, BMX might have 2 coaching staff and 20 to 30 trialists, where netball might have 5 or 6 coaching staff and 80 trialists. So how do we capture enough feedback that we can then pass on that specific feedback if we need to? Are we recording feedback on those that we think won't make it? So we're ticking those that do, and then we're focusing on those that don't, or are we just are we able to cover enough everyone, or are we just not covering enough? How do we feel on that one? Anybody?
Steve, I think, sorry, I might jump in first, Guy here. I think in the application process, Steve, I think we need to be seeking out information from athletes that also gives us a good initial understanding of the athlete, and also we might be able to, through that process, tap into or understand where they're coming from or what they've been doing previously to set a foundation for the trial process. Historically, in a triathlon sense, we used to do our quantitative assessment and then our qualitative assessment. So we do a swim, a bike, or a run time trial or whatever. But then we do the commitment, enthusiasm, that sort of stuff, criteria, similar to what Van was talking about, to assess their ability to participate in the program. Another factor that was important was their ability to deliver over the 6-month period as well, to come along to sessions. Some people, for example, have multiple sports they do. So we had to consider their ability to actually participate in the program fully. That was a consideration as well. So, or near fully. So there are a number of different factors that we consider as part of the triathlon program historically.
Yeah. No, I appreciate the Guy. And that's certainly something we've included, although it's been in the nomination form the last 2 years. We've now included across all sports, is we do ask athletes why they want to be involved in the academy, what their other sporting commitments are, as well as who their home coach is. And whilst it hasn't been provided in the past to squads for squad trials, because it's seen as that was a sporting trial, so it was a name, a number, and potentially a playing position, and off they go. We are capturing that data in the nomination forms for like individual sports such as West Future Stars, triathlon, BMX and golf, where some of those sports, probably BMX is now moving more to a trial system, which is fantastic. But West Future Stars and golf, where it's almost impractical or not really reasonable to run a sporting trial to see how they perform athletically, we are capturing that information. So we will be giving that information to coaches in the lead up to sport trials. So netball will receive a list of not just athletes' names, preferred playing positions, but also why they want to be in the academy. And I think that's certainly going to help develop a picture of what athletes are looking for from us as coaches, but also what they're looking to get out of and potentially put into a trial, which is going to be quite exciting to see where that goes. So I might just move it on. Thanks to Katarina, who's developed this wonderful talent ID trial form. So if we don't currently have one or are looking for a form that we could use during the trials process, this is one that was developed for our Indigenous Talent ID Day. Again, you can see the technical attributes there. You can fill that in subject to your particular sport. The physiological skills are pretty standard: agility, endurance, stamina, and recovery. And then character, coachability, communication, teamwork, and leadership, and then any additional notes. I think the most exciting thing here is this rating system. At the end of the day, when it comes to trials, there is a need for a common language amongst coaches. And when you're trialing these athletes, all coaches need to be on the same or at least a very similar page on what you're looking for and how you're ranking an athlete based on what they're showing out on the court or field. And as we found at the Indigenous Trial Day, the expectations of myself differed to the expectations of other coaches and people that were there. And I would say that would be the same from sport to sport and coach to coach. If you ask someone what are you looking for in an athlete, you would get very different responses in that respect. And again, that's available on our Coach Network resources. Is a template there, so you can download without the QR code, obviously, and print that off or use it to whatever format you may need.
Steve, I think the key thing there is that we have a system in place. We could use that or modify it or have our own system, but there needs to be, as you said, a system in place that gives us a way of evaluating athletes on an equitable platform, so to speak.
Yeah, we'd like to use this if a sport doesn't already have something in place. But again, the key feedback that we're after is that technical, physiological, and character. Character is probably the biggest one that can be forgotten about in clubland or association level, although it's becoming more familiar and common. If you're going to build a successful team, you don't want to be, it's the Melbourne Storm no dickhead policy. We need to make sure we have athletes who want to be coached and want to be in the academy, and they're not just here because mum or dad's telling them they have to be, or they think they've already made it. So again, some sports do have a really good rating system as long as all coaches are using it. All well and good, but if not, then this is the base system that the academy would like to implement. So at the very least, please go and have a look at this, especially that rating system, just bearing in mind that we're after coaches to be on the same page and same language when they're at a trial. So again, looking at...
Sorry, Steve. Can I just quickly put one point in there? And exactly on that is to make sure that you've got like a similar language, I guess, is just your preparation to a trial as well. So to make sure that you're meeting with all of those that are going to be rating their athletes and making sure you are on the same page. To say, look, okay, well, rating number one, the definition is this, what that looks like is this. So that way there's a bit more clarity in how everybody's seeing things. It's a bit like what you said on the Indigenous Day, your interpretation is slightly different to the next person. And so just taking that extra step to have that conversation with your people so that there is a common page that sits there. And then in that characteristic side, sometimes it's hard to judge in a trial setting. I know in netball, because we're a team sport and there's, we're looking at 80 kids, sometimes it's hard to make judgment on somebody, especially when there's a lot of nerves out there, when kids are really outside of their comfort zone. And so little things that, like I tell our coaches and also the players, I'm actually like open with the players up front and tell them the things that we are looking for and what they equate to. So simple things like leading into a trial, we'll set a task for them to do. So it might simply be that they have to write, this is your number, you have to write your number on your left arm and right leg. And so we then see who's actually done that, who's writing it frantically when they're just coming up the car park, who's writing it in there, who just didn't do it at all, who didn't know their left arm or their right leg. And just so we can start to see their ability to follow instruction. Then we'll also say to them things like, we're not going to warm you guys up. We want to see your ability to, do this together. And, you can start to see who the leaders are, but just purposely setting tasks for them that for us, it's for us to judge those characteristics And then for the selectors, it's like, okay, we're going to set these tasks. We're looking to see how they respond. That'll give us a good look at these 1, 2, 3 categories and characteristics, but just purposely setting those tasks up, being open with the athletes that they're the things that you're looking for, so they know from the get-go that these are important things in SWOS, and then also having your conversation with your people who are all going to be grading and judging, so you can, as much as possible, have, I guess, similarities in the way that we're all doing things.
Yeah. And I guess, Van, a challenge is we're in an environment where, in an ideal world, we would have heaps of time and we could run 2, 3, 4 trials to alleviate that nervousness approach. But yeah, at the end of the day, some sports and where we sit calendar-wise for a collective approach with all 12 sports in the academy to all meet at the same time and start their programs, timing can be very short. So you'll find a lot of these trials will take place as one particular trial. And again,
ours is one.
Sorry?
It's only, netball's only done in one. And that's what I mean, because it's in that pressure cooker, then to purposely set those tasks, but also be open that, you know, that's what you're doing and also what you're looking for. And sometimes when you're able to give them the clarity of what it is that you're looking for, it calms those nerves as well, just to have a little bit of clarity as to what to expect.
Exactly, definitely. And again, look, nothing wrong with one trial. So again, we'll just very quickly jump back into the slides. So tips for running a trial. So we would like to see trials that have at least 2 of either fitness testing or sport-specific combine. So these are sport-specific modified or baseline sports science testing. We don't expect a full science testing day because Katerina tells me that would take a full day. Sport-specific individual and or team skills and drills. So again, run them through something that they can then take into match play or learn from, like a footwork drill, that kind of scenario. And then short-sighted modified rules or trial games, depending on how many athletes you have, what specific skill you want to look at or focus on, and go from there. Again, the actual trial itself, most trials are going between 90 minutes to 2 hours. We're now, I think, in that space, and a lot of coaches here would probably agree. If we can push it out to a full morning or a half-day session and include things that will test them in academy values, such as, you know, how do they act if they had a 30-minute break between 2 sessions? How do they act if there's a bit of an education session thrown into it, and the sports science testing, or if it was an all-day trial process. So again, starting to think outside that box and starting to mirror what a usual academy training session or environment would be, and bringing that into the trial process. Just one, to get to know the athletes a little bit better, but also draw out that coachability and that commitment as well. Again, what is it that you are looking for? So have these conversations, please, with your coaching staff. So what's the skill set, the coachability, the communication or listening skills from those athletes, and even just pure potential amongst those athletes. Have standards in mind, that being the state sporting organisation, the state, what's expected at the state level. So if these athletes were to go and compete for New South Wales or Australia, what standards are set up there? What are the academy standards? And then what are your own standards when you're looking to trial athletes? So what are you looking for in an athlete you want to coach? Are you looking for quality or quantity? Are you in a situation where if you can take 30 athletes comfortably, would you take 30 athletes that are of an average standard, or are you looking for 15 exceptional athletes? Be prepared to compromise without compromising. Does anyone want to have a crack at what that could mean? What we might mean for that? Or does everyone understand compromise without compromising? So that's more along the lines of, if you need to change something up in a trial, add something more, spend a bit more time on a drill. You've got an athlete who's borderline, who you wouldn't normally take, but is showing a bit of promise, might just need a bit of polish, so be prepared to compromise on those standards without compromising Again, case in point, myself at the Indigenous Talent ID Day, if I stood to my standards, I would have probably 6 or 7 athletes that I would take. With compromising, we landed on 43 as a collective to go through that event. So, again, recognizing at what level you're coaching at, what level you've coached at, but what your athletes are and what's in front of you. Be proactive in being reactive. Again, trials can throw some interesting scenarios up at coaches. We just need to be in that position where we can react, but being prepared to run a trial with something not going to plan. And then a big one that we quite like at the Academy is, what can you teach that the athletes will leave the trial having learned? In this scenario, there may be athletes who have never been in a trial at this level. How are they going to remember the trial, and are they going to take something out of just a simple trial they'll remember and put in their program moving forward? Okay, just a quick study on who are our athletes. What do our athletes actually look like? So 23-24, the incoming athlete wellbeing data, considering that in our framework, we provide all 4, or at least 3 of these 4 scenarios through strength and conditioning programs, skill development, athlete wellbeing and support services, and access to sports psychology, sports mentorship, and sports education. So coming into last year's programs, only 48% regularly used gyms or strength and conditioning facilities. I would argue that 48%, out of that 48%, less than half probably knew how to use them effectively, or actually had a strength and conditioning program. They might have known what a gym was, but to actually undertake a specific program, that's probably a lot less than 48%. Only 34% utilised an individual skills or home coach. That question was, i.e. a coach outside of your normal club team coach. And you think, when we have sports like triathlon, BMX, and West Future Stars, which can include individual athletes, put that in a sporting squad environment, I would suggest that number is probably a lot lower for athletes who are actually using coaches outside of their team or club coach. What's quite interesting is only 17% use the services of a sports psychologist or sports mentor, which is something that obviously we promote and look to provide within the Academy. And only 18% attended church or youth group or another support network outside of their sporting team or environment. Again, that's just the social well-being of our athletes. So that was, if we did an exit survey, we'd like 100% of our athletes to regularly use gyms and strength and conditioning facilities. We'd like 100% to utilise individual skills or home coach, and 100% to use the services of a sports psychologist or sports mentor. The debate's still out on attending church, youth group, or another support network. However, we hope that they have the skills to reach out and seek help, or are doing something outside of sports so their life is not focused on just one thing. We did a coach symposium survey in back end of 2023, where we surveyed athletes and coaches on 2 key questions. And the first one was, what do athletes want in a coach? So these top 10 attributes form 70% out of 35 attributes that were identified that evening. The most exciting one is probably the top 3: providing guidance, mentoring, leadership. Be enjoyable, fun, enthusiastic, and passionate, and be supportive and understanding. Number 7 there, provide feedback. Very interesting where that was, but I think providing guidance, mentoring, leadership. I think as coaches, and especially academy coaches, we can't sit here and argue that any of those 10 shouldn't be there, and I think we all agree that those 10 are quite valuable in what we do as coaches. What was probably more interesting, so effectively what we summarised was, athletes want the opportunity in the Academy to be challenged in performance opportunities. They're not so worried about winning as they are about being developed. And they wanted to be provided direct, realistic, and honest feedback within a safe and inclusive environment. It definitely sounds like an Academy athlete. what was interesting is when we asked what attributes define an academy athlete. So out of 104 attributes that were identified between athletes and coaches that were there, this top 10 filled out 63% of those attributes. So the first one there, team player and showing leadership, coachable and willingness to learn, commitment and dedication, determined, good communicator, good person and character. What's at number 8? Athletic ability and natural sporting talent. Wouldn't that normally be number 1 for an athlete? I think some really good information here from our athletes on what they think defines an academy athlete. Interestingly, there was a distinct difference in top characteristics between what coaches were looking for and what athletes believed they were. And one of those was athletic ability and natural sporting talent. So coaches actually ranked this the second highest attribute they were looking for in an academy athlete, but it was ranked only 19th by the athletes. So whilst coaches seem to care about the athletic ability and natural sporting talent, the athletes certainly didn't see that as being highly important.
Dave, what do you think on that one?
So is that for me, Guy, or for Van?
No, it was you, Steve. I'm just wondering what you think on that. In my view, I think athletic ability and natural sporting talent is one of the key ones, given that we're in a pathway system. But what do you think?
I'll get to that in a minute. Determined. So if an athlete was determined, it was rated 10th by coaches, but second by athletes. So athletes felt they needed to be determined, maybe not so much by coaches. Good communicator came in 12th by coaches, but 4th by athletes. So athletes valued being a good communicator a little bit more than coaches. Athletes also noted sportsmanship, confidence, preparedness, respect, and seeking out and being receptive to feedback as key attributes in their top 10 that were not identified by coaches' responses. I think, Guy, this might help add your question. I might just jump ahead here. Actually, well, you know what? Let's ask this question. What would you add to the list as attributes for an academy athlete? And then I'll answer your question. Anyone, what would you add to the list of attributes that make an academy athlete?
I think, Steve, the lists are pretty comprehensive. It's just a matter of what order you want to have them in. I think from a coach perspective, it could well be quite different to how the athlete sees it. But
As this for one possible definition, and this is probably where I would answer your question, Guy, with our academy at the present time, is that our athletes were less concerned about where they were based on athletic ability and natural sporting talent, and more by their coachability and willingness to learn. So if we shifted the focus from where the athlete is right now to the potential that the athlete has to develop in the future and their ability to stay in that long term, do we land on this, where the academy athlete is actually an individual who shows the desire to improve and develop themselves within a team environment, where they are determined to succeed, be team players, and provided the leadership to grow, and an individual who desires feedback that will help them progress in their potential and future sporting endeavors and not necessarily immediate sporting success. How do we feel about that definition as an academy athlete? Is it close? Are we there? Is that a general what we're looking for as academy athletes? Again, that throws in that whole scenario, Guy, of yes, we're in a sporting pathway where these athletes should have some athletic ability and natural sporting talent, yet we've got athletes who have the desire to improve. They want to be coached. They want to be taken to a place where they're currently not. Whether they see themselves as having that athletic ability right now, or whether they see themselves having that in the future. Are we on the same page, but we're looking at different sides of that page?
Yeah, I'd think also it's a bit sport dependent. So some sports have a significant home environment where they have, you know, club environments and the like. And going back to that triangle you showed, it did say that the bottom part of the triangle is all about home, local sporting team environment. Then you move into SWAS in the talent area. So from that perspective, I'm thinking that you're getting athletes in some sports that have a bit of talent, have an ability to be coached, are coachable, can communicate, but they have shown some level of sporting talent or emerging talent potentially from their home environment. So that's where I'm thinking. But there are some sports I know that we don't really have a fully fledged home base for those athletes. So that could be different. You might want to start looking to try and develop athletes into that sport. But for example, in triathlon, I'm seeing that you need to have the athletes move into SWAS who've been in a home environment for a good 12 months and have an understanding of what it's all about and have an ability.
I think it is important to highlight that they need to have some sporting talent. And when I say that, I don't mean where they are now, but also the potential of them to be successful in the sport pathway, because it is a pathway process. And I also say that because I think our program brings in a lot of people who try hard, who want to get better, who will do lots to be the best that they can be. But the reality of the fact is the best that they can be may still not be as talented enough to make the next level. And so it's also nurturing every single person's growth. I think anybody who walks into a SWAS environment will always grow and be better just because of the people that are leading the programs. But it's also about, where we sit on that triangle in being able to try and push people to the next level as well. So not necessarily just seeing their athletic ability now, but their potential to athletically deliver, because sport is that side too. And if you can couple that with your coachability, you're committed, and those sorts of attributes, well, you kind of know that they're the ones that are going to have the long-term journey. I think we all would have seen talented people that don't have those off-field or off-court attributes, and so they're succeeding now, but they don't have that longevity in it. So I guess, for me, the pinnacle is the person that has a mix and blend of the two, because that's that long-term athlete, in that FTEM, which we also know with your minority and your gems as well.
Anyone else care to add to that definition?
Steve, in some situations, for example, in triathlon, you don't need to be a triathlete to get into the SWAS program, but you do need to have some abilities in swim, bike, run, for example, swim, bike, or run, or an outstanding ability in aspects of one of those, or part of those disciplines to be considered in the SWAS program. But normally you would come into a SWAS program having spent maybe 12 months in a club environment, and then also in your club environment, you then move into SWAS as well. So
yeah, so I guess the challenges in what's becoming evident is we really need to have that understanding of where our athletes are at when they're coming into trial and what level they're at coming into a program. And it goes back to that quality versus quantity, as well as, yes, where we sit in the pathway, what's the desire from the state sporting organisation, what are those standards to get to the next level, and then actually looking at our region and saying, is our region at that standard or at that level? And again, in some sports across the region, basketball is a perfect example. we don't have state players in our region who are competing in our local associations. They're going elsewhere and they're not coming back to academy programs. So the level of those athletes is there. If we selected on natural talent, athletic ability, we would have a very small program. Yet on coachability and those wanting to learn and develop and raw skill, we've got a program. Again, I understand certainly at the other levels when you're looking at triathlon and golf, where to get into those individual sport programs, you need to be competing at a high level. But then we're looking at the attributes of the athlete and where they're at, and are they realistic that they can do better or want to achieve better and continue to grow. Interesting discussion, guys. Really good.
Yeah, I know SSOs have, in most cases, limits on how many people you can have in an academy squad. So that's also a determinant. If you've got 20 applicants and only 8 places approved by an SSO, you're going to have to really fine tune and work on people who, probably had a fair bit of skill and experience in a club environment. But if you've got, 20 places and 20 athletes, and you might want to fill all those places, you might look for something a bit outside the square a bit, I think. So
yeah, I guess it's in that environment, Guy, when you're looking at 18, 19, 20, are they athletes who you can coach and develop, and how do you rate your ability to coach those athletes to get them up to speed and on par with, say, 9, 10, 11? Not necessarily 1, 2, 3, but certainly you're backing your ability as a coach to develop across the board.
Yeah, that's correct. I don't want to harp on it, but if you do introduce people into a SWAS squad that aren't anywhere near the level that the higher, half, 50% or 75% are, you're going to maybe compromise the squad as well. So you got to be really careful with a number of aspects there.
Well, fortunately, in the academy, we're in a position we can go both ways. If a normal squad SSO, for example, netball says 24 athletes, if we're in a position where there's only 17 or 18 good enough, we'll only take 17 or 18. But at the same side of the coin, if there are 26, 27, 28 who are good enough, we're able to take all 28 and work with those in some respects. So, yeah, again, we're very fortunate in our academy environment that we can. There's no set fixed numbers on a squad. It's obviously we have those conversations with our coaching staff to make sure that you're comfortable with the size of the squad. In an environment where there's only, for example, 2 coaches, we wouldn't go more than 12 athletes, because once you start going over a ratio of 6 to 1, we lose that personal approach. Yeah. And again, our role as coaches is to work together to take our athletes from where they are in their journey to where they want to go, or sometimes where they need to go, and be that conjugate and that carrier to develop them. Just thought we'd throw this in. This is what NSWIS, or the New South Wales Institute of Sport, put out as what they're looking for in their athletes at that next level. So again, where our athletes currently are to where we could be sending some of our athletes. So interesting here is they looked for a wide sport sampling. So athletes that have multi-sport skills. Again, NSWIS, we're probably talking an environment here where they are looking at converting track sprinters to bobsledders in that environment ahead of 2032 in the Olympics. So it's certainly not something we're looking really to do in the academy. But they've obviously identified physical attributes, physiological capacity, sport-specific skills, well-being and engagement skills, and psychological skills and attributes. And again, they put relevant and robust, or strong and robust, across all of those. Again, more so for information than anything that we need to focus too much on at the moment. But again, in your programming and when you're at the trials, have this in the back of your mind as what's achievable for that next level of athlete.
Steve, that's an important slide, I think, because it gives us some guidance as to where we want to get to. We want to deliver, athletes to the next level, ticking most of those boxes, if not all, certainly to an extent anyway.
Yeah. And if you look at this is quite, looks very similar to the life cycle that we have in the academy across the 5 key areas that we operate in that space. So it's exciting. We're all on a similar page and similar journey. Very quickly, just a reminder of the Coach Network Resources app. If you haven't already had a look at it, check it out. If you go to that website on your iPhone or Samsung, I believe still does the same, you can save, it's all web-based off a website. You can save that website to your home screen and it becomes a simple click of the button. Again, the forms in there, we're moving towards making things easier for coaches to report information. Obviously, injury incident report forms are obvious, but session and event feedback forms after every session that you have within your program, either as head coach or get the squad manager to complete that form. Quick, simple reporting, and then we can follow that up in the office. It just helps the communication there. But certainly the resources. So tonight's link, this was actually updated today. So the Academy Coach Guidelines and Manuals will have the resource from tonight, which is the Athlete Selection and Validation booklet and the template for ID selection. And then underneath it, you'll see that it is now changed to Coach Connect resources. And that'll have a copy of tonight's presentation and the slideshow from that. Then there are other things there, service provider resources and education. Scrolling down will be the direct Zoom link. So if you lose it or forget it, it will be in the link tree. And you can just go on there, connect that, as well as send emails. And we'll add more things to this as we build them and go along. The exciting thing, this is number 1. Number 2, in around about a month's time, on the 14th of October, the session will be on program planning, team building, and camps. And Guy will be leading that session in the presentation in that one. Then obviously after that, looking ahead, you will see that it kind of matches up to what would be a season plan and where we would be in season throughout the year as part of that program planning process. So again, can I encourage you, if you are yet to start your program planning or thinking about your selection trials or criteria, please don't hesitate to get in contact with Kat. I know Kat's keen to have those conversations to get things planned and locked away sooner rather than later, and that includes events in the first half of next year. We're looking to really improve communication and program planning across the board academy-wide this year, and obviously Coach Connect is that first starting point. Again, we are and always will be Southwest Sydney, and we look forward to a wonderful year ahead. So again, thank you for coming on to the Coach Connect, and as we continue to build these sessions and resources, we're also looking forward to building the participation as not only coaches come on board, but again, once finals and other events start to wind down, everyone's availability. So we'll have to stay open for a little while. If anyone's got any concerns, questions, queries, chats, want to catch up, or in that respect, please, by all means, go right ahead. So we'll stop the recording